You don't need a bunker. You need 48 hours. Most people hear nuclear detonation and mentally surrender. They picture a concrete vault buried under a farmer's field somewhere outside Saskatoon. They picture a six-figure build they'll never start. That surrender kills more people than radiation ever would. Everything in this protocol comes from radiation physics, NATO civil defense planning, and operational records pulled from Chernobyl in 1986. No fantasy, no fiction. 12 specific actions across 3 timed phases, 48 hours. Every item available at stores you already shop at. Most people will panic and drive directly into the fallout plume. You won't, because you'll know what they don't. After a nuclear detonation, outdoor radiation peaks within the first hour. Unshielded exposure at that intensity is lethal within days. But radiation follows rules. Rules you've never been taught. Until now. Here's your first phase. Hour 0 to hour 1. Warning and movement. You have minutes, not hours. Your first action is information. Grab a crank radio. Tune it to CBC Radio One. That's the national emergency broadcast backbone. It doesn't need cell towers. It doesn't need Wi-Fi. It doesn't need power. Most people reach for their phones. Cell networks overload or collapse within minutes of a major event. A $30 crank radio from Canadian Tire locks onto the emergency broadcast system with zero network dependency. You need fallout trajectory. You need shelter directives. You need wind direction. You get none of that from a dead smartphone. Information before action. Always. Your second action is water. Fill every container in your home. Right now. Bathtubs, pots, buckets, every water bottle you own. Municipal pressure may hold for a short window after detonation, then it's gone. A standard bathtub holds roughly 150 liters. At survival rationing of 4 liters per person per day, that's over a month of drinking water for one person. People think about bottled water. Bottled water runs out in days. Your plumbing is a reservoir you're ignoring. Turn on every tap. Fill everything, then shut them off. Your third action is the one that cost you $15. Contractor-grade garbage bags, 3 mil thickness. You can grab a box at Canadian Tire or Home Hardware for about $15. Cut them open. Tape them flat over every window, every vent, every gap you can find. Cold War-era civil defense studies documented that layered plastic sheeting reduces particulate infiltration through structural gaps by up to 90%. Dedicated CBRN sheeting costs hundreds of dollars and almost nobody owns it. These bags replicate the core function for pennies. $15. 90% reduction. Remember that number. Your fourth action is the one almost nobody knows. If you have to move, drive perpendicular to the wind. Not away from the blast, sideways. Fallout plumes travel downwind in an elongated ellipse stretching hundreds of kilometers. The instinct is to drive directly away from the detonation point. That instinct puts you on the same vector as the plume. You're driving with the fallout. NATO civil defense doctrine teaches crosswind evacuation. Driving just 30 to 40 kilometers perpendicular to the wind direction can move you entirely outside the fallout corridor. Check your crank radio for wind data, not away. Sideways. We'll get to why your furnace is your biggest vulnerability. And later, there's a $12 Dollarama item that uses Chernobyl science. But first, you need to harden your shelter. Phase 2. Hour 1 to hour 6. Shelter hardening. This is where you turn your home into a radiation barrier. Your basement is already a shelter, you just don't know it yet. Every 10 centimeters of packed earth or concrete halves your gamma radiation exposure. That's the halving-thickness principle. A standard basement with soil-backed foundation walls already provides significant shielding. You don't need a purpose-built bunker. You need mass between you and the outside. Move to the lowest interior corner. Stay below grade. The earth is your shield. Now improve it. Here's where it gets interesting. An 18-kilogram bag of cat litter from Walmart Canada or Costco has density comparable to packed earth. It costs $8 to $12. Stack bags along basement window wells. 3 bags deep gives you roughly 30 centimeters of dense material. Run the math. 1 layer halves your exposure. 2 layers cut it to 1/4. 3 layers drop it to 1/8. You're replicating bunker-grade shielding with cat litter from a big box store. People imagine lead-lined rooms. Physics doesn't require lead. It requires mass. Density you can buy by the bag and stack in minutes. This is the most important principle in this entire protocol. Mass defeats gamma. Now seal your ventilation. This is the vulnerability most people miss entirely. Your forced air furnace is an open pipe to the outside. It pulls contaminated air directly into your shelter through the HVAC intake. Grab your plastic sheeting and duct tape. Seal every intake, every vent, every return in the system. Cover them completely. You've already sealed your windows with garbage bags. But if you leave the furnace running, you're pumping fallout particles directly into your breathing space. In a prairie or Ontario winter, sealing your heating means your basement temperature will drop toward 10 degrees Celsius or lower. Plan for that. Sleeping bags, wool blankets, layer everything. Hypothermia is manageable. Inhaled fallout is not. Potassium iodide, you can pick this up at Shoppers Drug Mart. You need to take it within hours of exposure. But understand what it actually does. I protects one organ, your thyroid. It blocks radioactive iodine 131 from being absorbed by the thyroid gland. That's it. It is not a general anti-radiation pill. It doesn't protect your bones, your lungs, or your blood. Most people believe it's a radiation cure. It isn't. It's a narrow window, single organ supplement. Take it within the correct window and it does its job. Expect it to do more and you'll make fatal mistakes based on false confidence. Phase 3, hour 6 to hour 48. Sustain and wait. The most important number in this entire protocol is coming. Food. High-sodium canned goods from No Frills or Dollarama. Here's why sodium is the angle. Stress, sweating in a sealed environment, and restricted water intake increase your risk of hyponatremia, low blood sodium. It causes confusion, muscle weakness, seizures. Cheap high-sodium canned food isn't a flaw. It's a deliberate electrolyte strategy. Grab cans with pull-tab lids, no can opener dependency. $20 to $30 covers days of caloric intake. People grab whatever cans are nearest. You grab the ones with the highest sodium content on the label. Now, the $12 Dollarama item. Disposable rain ponchos. A box costs about $12 and gives you dozens. If you must exit your shelter briefly during the fallout window, you put a poncho on over your clothing. When you come back in, you strip it off and discard it before re-entering your sealed space. This prevents you from tracking radioactive particulates into the shelter on your clothes. Chernobyl liquidators in 1986 stripped their outer garments after every exposure for exactly this reason. People think about hazmat suits. A disposable poncho accomplishes the same decontamination principle. And you can repeat it dozens of times for $12. Pair that with an N95 mask and sealed swim goggles from Canadian Tire. Fallout is particulate. It's dust. N95 masks filter 95% of particles down to 0.3 microns. Sealed swim goggles protect your mucous membranes. Together, this pairing replicates the key function of a military-grade gas mask. A military-spec gas mask runs $300 to $500. This combination costs under $25. Same particulate defense, fraction of the price. Now the most critical action in this entire protocol. Stay sheltered. 48 to 72 hours. Here's the number, the 7-10 rule. For every 7-fold increase in time after detonation, radiation intensity drops by a factor of 10. At 1 hour, you're at peak intensity. At 7 hours, it's dropped to 1/10. At 49 hours, outdoor radiation is roughly 1% of its 1-hour peak. 1%. The physics does the work. You just have to wait. Patience is the single highest value survival behavior in a nuclear event. Most people will break shelter too early. They'll panic. They'll want to move. They'll convince themselves the danger has passed. It hasn't. Not at 6 hours, not at 12. The fallout is still settling. The particulates are still lethal. You wait. Time defeats radiation. Everything in this protocol costs less than $100 total. A crank radio, garbage bags, cat litter, duct tape, canned food, disposable ponchos, an N95 mask, swim goggles, potassium iodide, all of it available this weekend. All of it at stores within 20 minutes of wherever you're sitting right now. No bunker, no 6-figure build. No survival fantasy. 12 actions, 48 hours, physics and patience. You now know more about nuclear survival than 99% of the population. And everything you need costs less than a tank of gas. Time defeats radiation. What's your basement situation? Concrete walls or above grade? Drop your province. I want to see who's already sitting in a natural shelter and doesn't know it.